I think most people have already joined, right? So I suppose we can start. So let me first introduce myself quickly. My name is Luiz Rose, and I'm based in São Paulo. Liz from Asunción, Paraguay, Cusco, Peru, Milagros. Great. And at the moment, I work for Cambridge University Press, but I have worked for many publishers, many schools as a teacher, teacher trainer, and I've also written some materials, some books for Cambridge, for Disal. I have two vocabulary books written for Disal, right? And English is my passion. I love working with English, either teaching, writing about it, etc. Okay, so the idea today is to talk to you how you can empower your students in a fast changing world. Let's start by asking you the question: how can we prepare our students to succeed in a world that's changing fast? Can you please use I'll give you a minute. Can you please use the chat box to answer these questions? It's a difficult question, I know. So I just want to hear some ideas. So, how can we prepare our students to succeed? It's a broad question, right? What can we teach? What do we need to teach them? What can we teach them? Can we teach them only English, or do we need to teach something else? Make them confident. Thank you, Patricia. Yes, it's very important for students to feel confident. Otherwise, they don't. You have to make them responsible for their own learning. Excellent. Thank you, Sueli. Not just English, empathy, very important. Equity, autonomy. Thank you, Suzerley. Good afternoon, Teresa. Any other ideas? We can try to help them to be adaptable. Yeah, very important life skill. Mm-hmm. Any other? Hello, Dina from Rio. Teach flexibility, Jessica. Yes, they need to be flexible. They need to adapt to different realities, uh, uh, different environments, right? Adaptability. Thank you, Milagros. Yes. Okay. So uh, we need to teach them language skills, of course, because we are English teacher. They are there to learn English, but we also need to teach them life skills. And life skills are very important, right? Uh, because they help shape the personality of individuals. They help to shape they help them to establish their self identity, and it also helps them to prepare to face the challenges of life, right? Uh, because in this modern world, students need to collaborate with each other, to communicate, to negotiate, and these things nowadays are much more important than in the past because the world is changing fast. Technology has a big importance now. Hi, Ruth. Ruth. Um, right? But you don't need to teach life skills separately from language skills, right? You can teach them together. You can integrate them. So, why are life skills important? Can you answer, please? Can you answer in the chat, please? Why are they important? I have already answered it a little bit, right? But I want to hear your ideas. So that students will be ready to face the life challenges. Yes, excellent. Thank you. We educate for the world. Yes. Uh-huh. They are the basis of human interaction. Thank you. Ade, how to pronounce their name? Adefun. I can't pronounce it. Because our students have to face, have to go up, just a second. Uh, so that students will be ready to face the life challenges. Because our students have to face life day a day, solving problems, yes, to interact with others, to be able to interact better. Okay. Oh, so your name is Fumi. Okay. That's probably your nickname, right? Yeah, so all these things are all correct, right? Classes will be more meaningful. Yes, sure. And and there are many life skills that we can help your students develop, right? For example, these are some of the life skills that we can help them develop. For example, critical thinking, creativity, digital literacy, how to learn, collaboration, communication or global communication, right? Okay. And we have always taught this some of these life skills in our classes, right? But we have not taught them in a systematic way. We teach them when an activity is suitable, right? But sometimes we don't teach some of those um, life skills as deep as we could or we should. So the idea today is to give you some insights on how you can teach these life skills in more depth. So what do we see today? We see the increasing need to work together with people from around the world. We are in a global world, aren't we? We also see the need to think creatively and solve problems, to analyze sources more critically, to communicate our views effectively, and to maintain a positive mindset in an increasingly complex world. So, all these things are important, not only uh, in a classroom, but also outside the classroom or at work, right? And when we talk about life skills, there are lots of different definitions for it, right? We have life skills of WHO, which has 10 life skills. We have UNICEF's life skills. We have the ASCD life skills. So there are lots of different definitions for life skills. So this research team at Cambridge has decided to create its own life skills. Okay? Yes, 21st century. Thank you, Anna. Okay. And it's called the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, right? So it has been divided into 8 uh, competencies. And these 8 competencies are creativity, critical thinking and problem solving, digital literacy, learning to learn, communication, collaboration, emotional development, and social responsibilities. So these are the 8 competencies that Cambridge finds most important. Of course, there are others, but they are not considered as important as these ones. Okay? And you can divide or separate these life skills into thinking and learning skills and social and emotional skills. Okay? So the thinking and learning skills are creative or creativity, critical thinking, digital literacy, and learning to learn. Okay, so thinking and learning skills. The social and emotional skills are communication, collaboration, emotional development, and social responsibilities. Okay, so why does Cambridge call it competencies instead of skills? Well, because competencies are is a broader term. Because competencies are defined as a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Okay? Knowledge is composed of facts, figures, concepts, ideas. Skills, the ability to, or capacity to carry a process. And attitudes is the disposition or the mindset to act or react to ideas, persons, or situations. This was defined by the Council of European Union. Okay? So a competency is a little bit more than just a skill. But it's not wrong to say life skills. We prefer to call life competencies, but it's okay to just say life skills, right? But the life competencies vary according to the age of a student. And not only the age, but the environment, the education, etc. So the learning journey has different stages in life competencies, which varies across each one of them. For example, in pre-primary, you can work more on some specific life skills or the same life skill, but with different aspects, with different emphasis, right? Whereas in secondary school or higher education, you are going to work with other aspects of these life skills. So, as it says here, the exact boundaries between each stage will vary between different countries and different contexts, as will the expectations of what learners at each stage will be able to do. Right? So, Cambridge has divided these life skills into stages. But if you look at the life competencies in general, here are some definitions of the life skills, the most important ones. Here we have only six, but there are eight. But the six ones are creative thinking. What is creative thinking? Creative thinking is when learners actively participate in creative activities, generate new ideas, and use them to solve problems. Okay? Can anybody give me an idea of an activity which uses creative thinking? From the top of your mind, from the top of your head. Try to think of an idea of an activity where your students use creative thinking. No problem, Teresa. Teresa say, I'm sorry, no problem. If it's a child, for example, give suggestions. Yes? Excellent. Hmm. Riddles. Okay, thank you. Describing a picture or creating a story based on it. Yes. And describing is not so much creative, right? I think describing is more critical thinking, but creating a story definitely is creative thinking. Okay. Yes. Everything students need to think, right? Storytelling. Uh huh. Create a dialogue. Right. Excellent. Okay. The next The next competency is critical thinking. Ask them to talk about their passions. Okay. Learners identify patterns and relationships, evaluate ideas, and use these skills to solve problems. Right? Can you think of an example of critical thinking? And most of the verbs that you have in activities are related to critical thinking, right? Thinking like describe, categorize, explain. Okay. I suppose most of the course books nowadays have a lot of critical thinking, which I think is the most common uh, life skill that we use in English teaching, right? Next one, learning to learn. Learners develop practical skills to support and take control of their learning and reflect on their own progress. That's not a very common skill that course books usually have, right? And I'll show you examples of this later. Okay, but I think it's a very projects. Yes, projects can be used in many different with many different skills, right? You can use projects for creative thinking, for critical thinking, for communication, for collaboration, for learning to learn as well. Yes, yes, I think projects are excellent to practice most of those skills, right? Self-correction. Yes, self-correction is a learn to learn skill. Okay. Communication or global communication, right? Learners choose the most appropriate language to use in different situations, manage conversations effectively, and express themselves clearly and confidently. Communication is part of what we do, right? So not much to talk about that, right? But of course, we need to encourage our students to communicate. I've seen a lot of classes that only the teacher speaks, only the teacher communicates something, and students stay quiet. You need to encourage them to speak, to communicate, right? Collaboration. Collaboration is a skill that is getting more attention now, right? Many materials now are giving more attention to collaboration. Until recently, we had some collaboration in course books like uh, pair work or group work, right, or projects, right? But now we see there is more. Um, we see more attention on this competency. Okay. Uh, Cambridge now has even a platform which has a resource called Collaboration Plus, where students collaborate online. Very interesting. And they have to prepare a project online by collaborating with each other. The teacher creates groups, and these groups have to collaborate on a project. Social responsibilities. Learners recognize and describe different roles and responsibilities in a variety of groups and understand cultural and global issues. Yes, in a global world, right? Social responsibility becomes more and more important, right? And also in the classroom, in the school, or in the society in general, right? So for each competency, Cambridge has devised these can-do statements, right? And these can-do statements vary according to the age. Okay. So, for example, if we look at learning to learn, One of the can-do statement in pre-primary is ask the teacher for help. Okay. In secondary is produces a revision plan to focus on key skills and knowledge in a systematic way. At work, set achievable language learning goals, example related to specific skills or exam results. So Cambridge has devised these can-do statements for all of the competencies and for all the stages in life. All right. So if you are interested in learning more about this, you can download these booklets. You can look at the web page, right, and download these booklets. The address is cambridge.org CLCF. I'll write it here in the chat. www, no, not necessarily www. Cambridge.org slash is all free. Okay, so it's Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, CLCF, right? And you can find all about life competencies. All right. Are you in Europe? No, I'm in Sao Paulo. I live in Sao Paulo. I'm based in Sao Paulo. Okay. And I think Cambridge is the only publisher which incorporates life skills in a systematic way in the materials. Right? The other publishers, of course, they include life skills, but not in a systematic way. So, why integrate life competencies into English language teaching? Any ideas? Could you please write on the chat? Why integrate life competencies into English language teaching? Why don't you integrate life competencies into science, for example? Can you? Yes, you can. Or into geography to achieve our goals. Thank you, Suzelle. Patricia. So to make students feel more resilient speakers, to give them students a chance to uh, speak better about any subject, right? To help achieve our goals. Yes, yes, yes. Because life competencies, when we encourage our students to develop their life competencies, they are also developing their English language skills, right? One question: what do you think? Are language skills part of life competencies or not? What do you think? Some people say, I guess so, absolutely. Yes, encourage students to learn more. Yes. Yes, I think so. I think you can consider uh, language skills part of life competencies. Yeah. Okay. So, as a matter of fact, life competencies can be integrated into any subject, but they are particularly suitable for teaching English. Learning an additional language already involves many of the skills we are talking about, such as communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. This means there is a lots of scope to develop these skills further in an integrated way through the teaching of English. Okay? Uh, we are going to look at ways to encourage learner autonomy. Somebody mentioned learner autonomy in the beginning, right? In order to making learning better and more effective. Effective. The more responsibility our learners take and the more interest they have in their own learning, the more personalized it is, and the better the learning will be. So I think it's very important to integrate them in a more systematic. I know you are already teaching life skills, right? But if you can teach it in a more systematic way, students will develop them even further. So another question, which life competency is the most important? What's your opinion about it? Which life competency is the most important? Among these eight life competencies: creativity, critical thinking, digital literacy, learning to learn, communication, collaboration, emotional development, social responsibilities. Schools encourage students to learn more, face loud, challenge abroad, help achieve their goals, give students the chance to speak better about any subject to achieve our goals. Because language skills are connected with their depends on the context. Learning to learn. Okay, they're equally important. Thank you, Milton. Communication, Maria do Rosário. All right. Creativity, Larissa. Communication, Beatriz. Critical thinking and problem solving. Hard to choose, Mariana. Yes, very hard to choose. They're all very important, right? Teresa. I can't read it here. But critical thinking and problem solving, learning to learn because it gives autonomy, emotional development, creativity, having a plan B. Okay, all of them are important. Yes, there is a lot of debate which one is more important, right? I got two quotes here from Learning to Learn. Okay, Sally. I got two quotes here. The first quote is from Tony Buzan, he's a American psychologist who wrote many books about uh, skills. And learning how to learn is life's most important skill, according to this guy, right? Uh, I agree because if you don't know how to learn, how are you going to learn the other skills, right? So it's a very important skill. But as normally children learn by imitating, right? But you can, as you grow, you can develop new ways of learning. And some people do it naturally, but sometimes you need to help them. Okay. And another person called Brett Morrison said that of all the life skills available to us, communication is perhaps the most empowering, right? As he didn't say it's the most important, but the most empowering, which is the title of this talk, right? How you can empower your students. Okay, so in this case, I agree with him. Communication is the most empowering. It empowers your students. That's why English is part of communication. Right? Mhm. So let's take a look at three of those life competencies. The first one is learning to learn, and then we will look at critical thinking and then collaboration. Okay, learning to learn. So, what are the core areas? There are three core areas: developing skills and strategies for learning, taking control of own learning, and reflecting on and evaluating own learning. So, developing learning to learn, effective learners use a variety of learn to learn techniques, identify goals, and reflect. Right? As I said before, this is a competency that sometimes is left behind. Many course books don't pay enough attention to this, right? Let me give you some examples and it will become clearer. This is an example of a learn to learn activity. This case here, the first one is about school subjects, and students are encouraged to recognize cognates. Okay. Write the subjects from exercise under the headings. Can you add any more subjects? The ones that are similar to the names of, in my language and the ones that are different. So mathematics, for example, is similar, right? Science is similar, okay? Uh, Physical education, not so similar, right? It's similar, yes. So most of the Latin words are similar, right? In the other case here, places in school. The learn to learn activity involves making a spidergram. Try to think of other words related to new words and make spidergrams to increase your vocabulary. This is a good technique to make students expand vocabulary. And many students have never done that. Okay. Some other examples. Categorize vocabulary and identify word forms. So noun and verb forms. Okay. So if you get a verb and you can make a noun, for example, by adding er, ing, or, tion, etc. Right. So students are encouraged to identify which is a verb and which is a noun by looking at the differences. Another one, understanding British English and American English, right? You make students pay attention to the different types of English. Okay. There's a web page and it asks the students to say whether it's American English or British English and the different kinds of words, the differences in words. Some materials like this one has a whole page dedicated to learn to learn. It is divided by observe, try, and reflect. So first students observe, then they try it, and then they reflect. So this can help your students think about how they learn. And by the way, this book is here. It's called Own It. It's for teenagers. Another example, by working, you can work in pairs. Okay. For example, in this case, advice. Did advice with always or never. Self-assessment. Self-assessment is part of learn to learn. Okay. So you ask students to assess themselves. In this case, they can mark the emoji, right? This is from Own It. This one here is from American in Power. So you can see it's for older students, right? So in this case, they should write 1, not so well, 2, well, 3, very well. I can talk about people's lives, etc. Right? So I think it's an interesting way for students to reflect on their own learning. Do you have PDF? PDF of what, Marina? In the website I gave you, you can find the PDFs. You can download the PDFs. right? There's one general PDF and six or seven PDFs of, or eight PDFs of the competencies. Okay. And in some cases, um, you have this correlation, right? Where the material tells you which page you can find the competency. So, for example, here, the competency is learning to learn. So, if you look at page 58, the component is managing the learning environment, and you can find it here how to deal with life's little problems. What if we don't have all this material? Well, you can incorporate life competencies into any materials, right? In the Cambridge website, you will find the life competencies cards with lots of ideas of activities that you can use, okay, for different ages, right? Of course, if you have a material, if you use a material that already has it, it's much easier for the teacher, right? But you can still use them separately. Okay. Critical thinking, I think, is a very important skill, right? And I usually tell my students, when I used to teach many years ago, I used to tell them, how do you know if this news, the news you are reading, is real or fake? And they'll tell me, I don't know, by thinking. Yes, by thinking critically. If you think critically, you can tell whether the news is real news or fake news, right? Because fake news is a word that they hear a lot now, right? So this is how they can understand, a simple way for them to understand that, what is critical thinking. I think it's important for your students to understand that they are developing life competencies. Because sometimes the book doesn't say it, right? But I think it's important for you to remind them and to show to them that to show them that they are uh, learning and developing some life competencies. So the core areas of critical thinking are understanding and analyzing ideas and arguments, evaluating ideas and arguments, and solving problems and making decisions. So whenever you have an activity where your students are asked to understand or analyze something, they are practicing critical thinking. If you ask them to evaluate an idea or an argument, they are practicing their critical thinking. If they are solving problems and making decisions, they are practicing critical thinking. So developing critical thinking, effective learners solve problems, train their brains, are always thinking. And when our students are always thinking, they feel more motivated. Thank you, Anna. The questions we ask: see, think, and wonder. Right? These three questions are the most common. Okay. Uh, normally, normally when we open a unit, we usually have a picture, right? And the most common is for teachers to ask, "What can you see in this picture?" Right? Very common. But what if we expand this? Look at the questions here. Who do you think the people taking a selfie are? Where are they? What are the people around them doing? What do you think they have just said to each other? What's going to happen next? So you're expanding the picture and making them think beyond the picture, right? And making them imagine. You're making them think. Okay? So it's always a good idea to ask your students to describe the picture, no problem, but try to expand on what uh, could be happening outside the picture or inside the picture, but it's not really explicit. They can use their imagination. Okay. On the other, there are some discussion questions here in letter B. On what occasions do you normally take photos? If you could take a selfie with a famous person, who would you choose and why? Very important. Why? Very important in critical thinking, right? What role do you think famous people play in society? Should they be good role models? Should they inspire other people? Students need to think to answer those questions. They're not very simple questions. Okay, and this is an upper intermediate level. It's called American in Power. It's a new series. That's why the questions are not so easy, right? And then you can also use this puzzles, right? Like anagrams, word snakes, and codes. I think these are more suitable to teenage learners, right? But adult students and young adult students also like it if it's challenging enough. If it's too easy, then they lose interest. But if it's challenging enough, I think they are interesting, right? And this brings variety to the activities, right? And they are good to practice critical thinking. Another way of practicing critical thinking is through problem solving, right? So in this case here, you can work in pairs or you can work in groups. And I'd like you to think of three or more ways the crow can eat the nut. Then share your ideas with a partner and choose the best one. Can you, in the chat box, can you give me an idea on how a crow can eat the nut? Remember that the nut is hard, right? They can't open it with their beak. They need to open in a different way. How can they open the hazelnut to eat it? It's problem solving, right? Their beaks are strong, but not strong enough to break the nut. Cracks it on a stone. Yes, Ruth, thank you. Has to beat its beak in the middle of the nut. Oh, good idea. Letting the nut fall from the height. Okay, yes, very good. It flies high and lets it fall. Oh, you've seen it already, right? Yes, that's how they do it, right? But interestingly, in some cities, uh, the crows they wait for the red signal, right? When the cars stop, they put the nut in the crossing, the pedestrian crossing, and wait for the cars to pass over it to break the nuts. So they are very clever, very intelligent, right? So crows solve problems to get food. In some cities, they develop the ability to read traffic lights. They wait for the red light, place a walnut in the road, then fly up and wait for a car to drive over the nut and break it open. That's how birds solve problems. So they use critical thinking as well, right? Yes, crows are very intelligent birds, right? Almost, I think, as intelligent as dolphins. And last but not least, the uh, competency is collaboration. And nowadays, I think more and more collaboration is important, right? In the past, when we had a new discovery, usually it was made by one person, right? And now we need lots of people. Discoveries, the new discoveries are not made by one person anymore. Very rarely they are made by one person. People need to collaborate. And it's interesting because now you can collaborate with people from all over the world, right? It's much easier now to collaborate with people from other countries, which was very difficult some years ago, right? Especially before internet, because people had to write letters, wait for the letter to arrive, right? But now with internet is much easier. So collaboration is a very important 21st century skill, right? Or life competency. So you can divide or look at collaboration in four core areas: taking personal responsibility for own contribution to a group task, encouraging effective group interaction, managing the sharing of tasks in a group activity, and working towards task completion. Right? Uh, so it's very good to work with collaboration in projects. Right? And in projects, you can encourage students to think about these core areas, right? And what they can do to make it more organized and effective. So you can try to help them work to collaborate with others and uh, and have better integration. Developing collaboration. Effective learners listen to each other and give feedback. Learn from each other, pool ideas, and work together. Is an example of project work, right? Where students can use lots, not only collaboration, but other life competencies like use of social skills, think critically, work collaborative, create creativity, right? Question actively, okay? And it's interesting if you give your students some project to do. It's interesting not only to praise them for the end result, for the product of the project, but also to praise them for the process, right? You can have some formative assessment during the project, okay? And you can identify what students are doing during the process. So you can explain to your students, I'm not going to evaluate only the end result. I'm going to evaluate what you are doing during the project, how you are coming up with solutions, how you are thinking about the problem. Okay. So you can divide the project, for example, in three stages: planning, facilitating, and assessing. Right? And of course, the teacher here is much more a facilitator than a teacher, right? The teacher is going to help them uh, work by themselves. So planning for collaboration, uh, you need to make sure that your students have an objective, and you can focus on a specific area of collaboration. Choose and adapt an activity which allows you to develop this particular aspect, and consider what language students may need for this aspect of collaboration. Because it's very common students start speaking Portuguese. So you should prepare them for what they are going to need, right? You should give them the necessary language they need to discuss, to think about the project. And as I said, the teacher should be a facilitator, right? So you could share the collaboration learning objectives with the class, provide support in the form of strategies, worksheets, checklists, and provide feedback on this collaboration goal as you monitor. So the teacher should listen actively, encourage participation, give feedback, ask for and give reasons, right? And you have some questions there, like, what do you think? That's interesting. Really? Why? And time management is also very important, right? So you should give them time for doing the project. Sometimes it's good to divide the project into smaller tasks. Okay. So first, for example, they have to search the internet for something. You give them some time to do that. Then they have to think about they have to first think about the objective, then search the internet, then separate what's most important, and etc. Okay. And of course, ask them to present the final result, the final uh, presentation. Here's an example of a project, the art project. So you can assign roles to your students, and you can assess collaboration. Like I said, in this case, you should assess collaboration during the process as a kind of formative assessment. So you should assess collaboration, the process, not just the outcome, the product of the task. And you should use a mixture of teacher assessment, peer, and self-assessments. And you can also give peer feedback. Now, just here's another example of a page which has lots of different life competencies. Okay, not even a full page, it's half page. And this half page, you can see different life competencies like understanding links between ideas, managing conversations, talking about emotions, intercultural awareness, and problem solving. Right? This is from a material called Think. And last but not least, we have still 3 minutes. I just want to point out that many of the examples I showed you are from this new series called American Empower, which is designed for young adults and adults, right? And this series has classroom materials that inspire and validated assessment and CFR reports, right? And of course, the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. okay, with this mapping. There's a mapping of the life competencies to each part of the material. Okay, it's a new material and it's available already. So if you want to learn more about it, you can search our website, right? If you go to cambridge.org, just type there American in Power. And last but not least, some food for thought from Brian Herbert. The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice. Questions? Do you have any questions? Thank you, Elena. Do you have any suggestions about oral exams? Hmm. Well, most of our materials have oral tests, right? But in general, oral exams, it's very hard to say because they are usually prepared for something, right? So you need to check what, thank you. You need to check the material you are learning and prepare questions for your students or discussions, right? Thank you, Ruth. Thanks a lot, Jaida. Celia, thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Patricia. Karina, thanks a lot. Thank you. Describe the picture can be a test. Yes, I think so. Yes, I think it's possible. Yeah. Thank you, Beatriz, Marina. I was punctual, right? It's 5 o'clock. I'm not British, but today I managed to be British. British punctuality. It's raining cats and dogs here in the south, so it's been a pleasure. No, I hope the rain doesn't come here soon to São Paulo, but it usually does. How proud I am when I realized I am. I lost you. How proud I am when I realized I'm not teaching language, but how someone can be a better person. That's true. Yeah, you are. We are all are, right? We are not just teaching language. We are teaching much more than language. Mhm. Thank you, Maria Auxiliadora. Disal is also thanking. You're thanking Disal, right? Mariana, thanks. Well, I hope I can talk to you again someday. Is there a page on Insta about this? I think in the Cambridge page, Cambridge, Brazil. If you go to the Instagram about Cambridge, Brazil, you will find information there about the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. Okay, Mariana, thanks. But I think it's better to find it in the website I gave, right? The cambridge.org CL Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. CLF CLCF. I have all the PDFs. Oh, you have all the PDFs. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you. Thank you, Luis. Luis Alberto. See you soon, Mariana. Thank you. Thanks, Lucelina. Bye bye, Marina. congruence, capacity, ability, and much more. Thank you, Dina. It's very kind of you. Cambridge Capital Adult, Cambridge English and Power. Product details, life competencies. Thank you, Sheila. Yes, I did. I forgot to. Sheila works with us for Cambridge. She gave you the link to American and Power, so you can find it there. So if you're interested in learning more about American in Power, you can click on this link.